Hi, I'm Anthony Mangano and welcome to City of Churches. Most recently, we got a lot of requests to visit St. Charles Borromeo Church in Brooklyn Heights. See, it turns out that our previous host, Nick Vavas, had actually filmed an episode there, but it wasn't quite completed. So we sent out our camera crew to film in these missing scenes, and with our editors collaborated and put together this lost episode featuring our previous host, Nick Vavas. So let's go to Brooklyn Heights to see Nick at St. Charles Borromeo Church. Please watch.
Hey there, I'm Nick Vavas with City of Churches. Join me right back here in the next episode as I visit St. Charles Borromeo in Brooklyn Heights. I'll see you right back here on NET. Brooklyn Heights is located directly across the East River from the southeast tip of Lower Manhattan. It stretches from Old Fulton Street near the Brooklyn Bridge south to Atlantic Avenue and from the East River east to Court Street and Cadman Plaza. Brooklyn Heights is the most expensive neighborhood in the outer boroughs, but if you ask the residents here, they'll tell you that it's well worth it. And the commute is really quick to go over to Manhattan. In fact, it's quicker travel time than actually going back and forth between neighborhoods in Manhattan itself. All right, so let's talk about the highlights. It's beautiful. There's gorgeous homes. Behind me is the newly expanded Brooklyn Bridge Park. Incredible views of the city, the promenade that we're on right now. As you walk around, you'll see these tree-lined streets. They're neat, they're clean, they're safe. Now, add it all up, and what have you got? Brooklyn Heights is considered historic landmark status. It's not too shabby. Just as Brooklyn Heights is synonymous with the promenade, it's also equally known for its historic brownstones, architectural style, and its Federalist-style homes like the one behind me. Brooklyn Heights is the first neighborhood protected by the 1965 Landmarks Preservation Law of New York City. And preservation is a good thing for the area because a number of houses, particularly along Pierpont Street and Pierpont Place, are authentic mansions. In order to preserve the status of the neighborhood, you might be surprised to learn that a lot of these streets are named after fruits. There's Cranberry Street, Orange Street, Pineapple Street. One of the locals around here told me that one of the best routes to take is these streets instead of the BQE in case you ever find yourself in a jam. Just the mere mention of Brooklyn Heights, and any New Yorker who knows the area will tell you that it's rich in style, history, and affluence. I'm here on Montague Street. It's the main business center of Brooklyn Heights with tons of shops, diverse restaurants, and great people watching. There's also a lot of law students and lawyers here as well. And I'll bet that at one time or another, they all stopped into the Brooklyn Historical Society over on Clinton Street in Pierpont. It's a four-story Queen Anne-style building that was completed in 1881 and was designed by architect George B. Post. In July 1991, the building was recognized as a National Historic Landmark. The Brooklyn Historical Society provides a look into Brooklyn's past with changing exhibits and walking tours of the neighborhoods. One of the things that really struck me as I made my way through Brooklyn Heights was the large number of churches of all different religions. It seems like there's almost one on every block. But right now, we're at our ultimate destination, St. Charles Borromeo, right here in Brooklyn Heights, and inside is Father Ed Duran. He's waiting to take us on a tour. Father Ed Duran is largely responsible for re-energizing this church as well as its membership. Let's head on in.
You're watching another lost episode of City of Churches. Welcome back to another lost episode of City of Churches.
Father Ed, how are you?
Welcome to St. Charles Borromeo.
It's good to see you. Thank you so much.
Pleasure
Borromeo. I wanted to say Borromeo first.
Nope.
It's Borromeo. I have to get that
Borromeo.
right.
Borromeo.
So I'm walking through Brooklyn Heights to get here, and I passed several churches on the way here. How is this unique, would you say, in comparison to the other?
This particular church is an English Gothic style church. It is built in the 1860s. Matter of fact, 1869, the foundation says. And it's a particularly gorgeous church, so it's going to be my pleasure to share it with you.
It is. I'm excited. And you know, when you walk in, the lighting is very dramatic, I would say.
Yes.
It's dramatic lighting. And with the wood, it complements it very well. It really is a very inviting feeling when you walk in. It's very warm and dramatic. How would you describe, now the construction of the church, I understand, you said 1869
69.
was the construction of the church.
Correct.
Prior to this, did the parish worship elsewhere?
Yes. In 1849, Monsignor Peace purchased across the street a church that used to be an Episcopal church, Grace Episcopal Church. The community worshiped there for 20 years. They had a fire, and this was built then by Monsignor Peace as the St. Charles Borromeo Catholic Church. So this church is built for Catholic worshipers, and you'll find many, many features familiar to anybody who knows the Keeley style.
The Keeley
church.
style, yes.
Correct.
He's done a lot of churches,
Correct.
a lot of Catholic churches in the style. Tell me about, the construction is fantastic. All of this, the ceiling, the painting, the details. What can you tell me about the arches and
The arches of
construction?
the arches of the church, unlike many other churches, this is what's called a carpenter Gothic. So your arches are wooden arches. You have beautiful murals located in the ceiling. The particular murals here, the coat of arms of St. Charles Borromeo,
Okay.
right up there. And Charles Borromeo was an educator, renowned in the formation of clergy and in the education of young people in what we today call religious instruction. In his day, it was confraternity of Christian doctrine. So there we have the coat of arms, and there we have the beautiful spirit that inspired Charles Borromeo in his work in bringing education and formation to the clergy of the country, of the world, actually.
Yeah. So would he be the patron saint of
Seminaries.
Seminaries?
And religious formation.
Okay. So I want to talk about, there's so much detail and so many things I want to talk about. Let's start with the stained glass, which is really spectacular.
The stained glass.
Tell me about the stained glass.
The stained glass comes from Germany. It's Münchner style stained glass. The windows were done over a period of time. At the very beginning, we didn't have the money, or they didn't have the money to install all of the windows, but gradually, one by one, they began to install. This is a beautiful depiction of Jesus with the children.
Wow. What would have been in place before? Just an empty glass or maybe wooden window, do you think, as it progressed?
My understanding, and looking back to the early pictures, it was simply a clear glass.
Just a clear glass window.
And then
okay.
as the funds came available, as people were able to donate, another window would be installed.
Yeah.
On the opposite side of the church, we have a picture of Jesus, the Good Shepherd, bringing forgiveness onto the world. Each particular window frame has a biblical root to it. They are very beautiful and very meditative.
Absolutely. It almost looks too, something is different about the style or the way that it's been painted. Something about the glass looks different. This is very bright, let's say. This one seems a lot...
more somber, perhaps.
Yeah, maybe something like that. Is that because they were in different phases? They were brought in, perhaps? It's not.
They were brought in different phases, and what happens is the color of the glass changes slightly with the fabrication. So I think what we're dealing with here is just different era, different time, and a slight variation in the colors of the glass.
Tell me about the Stations of the Cross.
The Stations of the Cross are brass depictions of the journey of the biblical journey of Jesus from his condemnation by Pilate to his resurrection from the cross. They are original to the church. They were put up at the very early stages and used quite a bit during the Lenten season. We have Stations of the Cross every day here, and particularly on Fridays in the evening, we journey together the 14 stations with Jesus.
What about the portraits under each station? There are portraits all around the church?
The portraits are all around the church, and they are depictions of the first pastors. It represents the historical foundation of the leadership of St. Charles Borromeo Church. So maybe when I die in 100 years, I'll be up on the wall.
That is great. Well, it's a lot of history too. I'm sure it's preserving that and it's honoring that. 160 years is the history, and that was celebrated somewhat recently?
It was celebrated in 2009, celebrated 160 years. At the 150th anniversary, Father Krause, who was the pastor then, had the dimmer system installed on the lights. Our lighting system is beautiful. It has the ability to be highly illuminative, or we can bring the lights down depending on the ambiance and the need.
So higher than this right now?
Oh, yeah.
Get much brighter. Actually, this seems perfect. It is, it's perfect. How would you describe this parish that I'm sure you've come to embrace them and they, you? How important is that to you, the parish here? What do they mean to you?
The people here are wonderful, wonderful people. They certainly are educated and faith-filled men and women. It has been a great joy to be able to bring the Spirit of the Lord to them. And the one thing about this community that maybe is a little bit different is they have stepped up to work with me.
There are so many details I want to ask you too about the altar. One is the Tiffany glass that I'm looking at from here, which is exquisite. Yes. Give me some history.
The Tiffany glass was installed on both sides of the altar. At the time, Tiffany glass was one of the standards in New York, and any Healy church tried to incorporate Tiffany glass. So in an attempt to represent some of the beautiful historical saints of the time, we put depictions on each side of the church. Particularly beautiful, as is all of the stained glass in the church. The church is of an English Gothic style, and within that, it's a carpenter type of church. In other words, the columns are wood with sort of a faux marble put around them, but they are wooden beams carrying the structure of the roof.
Where else is that carpenter style seen around the church? What exactly, how do you define that? I mean, everything.
Carpenter style is the wood in the arches, as opposed to either metal or marble. Mm-hmm. So the carpenter style was slightly less costly, and it was done to bring the cost of the church into a more reasonable frame. The exterior of the church is English Gothic. It is a beautiful baked English brick with a gloss on it. Very expensive brick that unfortunately in the 1950s, they covered the brick with paint. That was to save the cost of doing the joints of the brick, pointing the brick, taking out the old and putting in the new mortar in between the bricks.
Yeah, when I approached the church, I didn't see brick texture. It looked more as if it was painted with the red.
They have been painted with red paint. An economical way of doing things, but it's something I would like to change and go back to the original.
And the bell tower, is that unique as well to the church?
The bell tower was built as part of the church. There is a magnificent bell up there. In these days, though, it is struck by an electronic gong.
So it does work?
It does work. It's functioning.
And when are they rung?
The bells are rung at noontime and at 6 p.m. for the Angelus.
And Father, tell me about the crucifix on the wall.
The crucifix goes back to the World War I. At the end of World War I, the parishioners, in memory of the many men and women from this congregation who served, commissioned that cross to be made. Originally, the cross was located where the embo is right now. It was a focal point in the center of the church. In the renovation under Monsignor Divini in the 1960s, the cross was moved to the side by the St. Joseph altar. And you will see people as they leave the church, they stop to offer the prayer before the crucifix, which is located at the feet of Jesus. Many people love to touch the nails of his feet, but they have an opportunity to both honor the many men and women who served our country in World War I, but in addition, they have this magnificent chance to come so close to Jesus upon his cross and touch base with the suffering of Jesus.
It definitely has a historic look to it. It's got some age to it.
It does.
Really gives a character. Okay. And then the side altars as well. I do notice the side altars are utilized for...
In the original days, there probably were masses on those altars, but here we have the depiction of St. Joseph, honoring him in his role as the father of Jesus. We have our Blessed Mother's altar over here. And in the earlier days, you could have had masses celebrated at all three altars, but today we have one central focus, one main altar.
I wanted to ask too about the altar rail. We don't see that a lot in a lot of churches. They've been removed, so it sort of opens up the altar as well. That's always been, that's original?
The altar rail at St. Charles Borromeo, for whatever reason, was never removed. It is a beautiful part of the actual altar itself, and my inclination is, if it isn't broken, don't fix it. Nick, could I invite you to come on up and see the altar?
Of course, I'm going to follow you.
As we approach the altar, one of the unique things of this church is there's an apartment above the sacristy, and in that apartment, the sextons of the church lived for many years, from the very foundation until 1989. The sexton was in charge of putting coal into the furnace, keeping the vestments in shape, and they kept this church beautiful. That apartment lies unused, but for many years it was a part of the history of the church.
This is beautiful, the altar. The paintings are glorious, the stained glass window. Let's start with some of the paintings, perhaps, on either side, the murals. Can you tell me about those?
On this side of the altar, we have St. Charles Borromeo, again, instructing people. Charles Borromeo was the patron of formation and religious education. And in this portrayal, he is gathering around him some of the people, trying to elucidate them and clarify some of the points of faith. On this side of the altar, we have, again, St. Charles Borromeo giving communion to St. Aloysius Gonzaga. St. Aloysius was a patron, was very influenced by St. Charles Borromeo, and actually, historically, received his first Holy Communion at the hands of St. Charles. So the sanctity of Charles then touched many, many people who went through seminary, and for many years thereafter.
And then, of course, this another magnificent stained glass window, which is gigantic, above the altar.
Nick, that particular stained glass window is a depiction of St. Charles Borromeo. He's gathered around him a group of people. It sits directly behind the altar, and it is one of the focal points of the church. The altar, and slightly above the altar, this magnificent depiction of Charles Borromeo surrounded by the people who loved him and the people he served. It's a particularly beautiful representation of that wonderful saint.
Do you know if that window was, you said the windows were added in installments over time. Do you know if that was here originally? Was that one of the first ones?
There were plans for the picture in the beginning. It was added in the 1920s and beautifully portrays the life of Charles.
So a few decades after the church was built, this was the addition.
Yes, definitely.
Father, the altar, I can see under the cloth, is wood, whereas the altar table, I should say, the altar is marble, the railing is marble. How do you differentiate that? Why is that the case, that it's different?
The wooden altar came at the end of the Second Vatican Council when it was decreed that the Mass was to be celebrated facing the people. Until then, the priest would have been at the main altar with his back to the people.
Facing the altar.
Facing the altar. So that came about as a result of the Second Vatican Council. It is a beautiful wooden altar, but it contrasts the magnificent marble altar rail and the magnificent marble altar table. In the choir loft with our beautiful Odell 140-year-old organ, we would have our choir singing from the choir loft. Would you like to go up and take a look at our beautiful
Of course, absolutely.
Odell organ?
I've heard a lot about it. I will follow you.
You're watching another lost episode of City of Churches. Welcome back to our lost episode of St. Charles Borromeo Church in Brooklyn Heights.
Choir loft is right down here. Nick, as we move towards the choir loft here, you have a magnificent view of our church. It's a panorama that very rarely you can achieve.
So much space up here.
Isn't
This
it
is
amazing?
incredible. Father, look at this view.
Look at the vista there. Everything is in full.
It's too bad you can't do your sermon from up here. This is incredible.
That certainly would be interesting.
I can hear the acoustics too right now from where we're
acoustics,
standing.
The acoustics are magnificent, and that's why our choir is up here with this beautiful Odell organ. The instrument itself, the Odell organ, is 140 years old. It's a full pipe organ. The sound is heavenly.
Really?
And it simply rolls down the church, and the people enjoy it tremendously. This magnificent instrument, the Odell organ, was built 140 years ago. We use it on Sundays. It's used quite a bit for concerts. St. Francis College has graduation, and they often have concerts here in the church. So it's a beautiful instrument that is used quite a bit. All of the pipes still function. So it's been well maintained over the years and provides a beautiful ambiance for the celebration of Mass at St. Charles Borromeo Church. All of the pastors have been very attentive to the care and the upkeep, and as a result, the instrument is at its peak.
Did you say it's one of the oldest organs?
There are 8 Odell organs of this vintage still functioning throughout the world, and this one is one of the beautiful instruments that's still working. Actually, the man who services it is named Ed Odell. His great-grandfather was the founder and the builder of this particular organ, and for 140 years it has served the people of this congregation very well. The Odell Company features it on their website, and often they have sponsored concerts here to celebrate this magnificent instrument. So it stays in the family.
It's really incredible. And it's also, I mean, it's so high, and the pipes are I mean, you can't even imagine how big they are. Folks can't see this, but they go soaring up into the top of the ceiling. And then you've got these great acoustics that come out and use the choir.
On Sundays, we have masses at 9 and at 10:30. It's used. We always use the choir loft with the beautiful Odell organ. And again, on holy days, we would have a full choir for the 12:10 Mass in the afternoon.
Well, I can't thank you enough, Father Ed. Really, this was great. This was a great tour, so much history, and it's wonderful that we're ending up here in the most beautiful part. It really is. So thank you, and I will absolutely see you back. If I'm invited,
my
I would love to come. I want to watch you give your sermon. Can I sit up here and watch? This is the best view.
Absolutely.
Very, very nice. Well, thank you very much. Again, I want to say thank you to Father Ed. If you want more information on this church or any other church in this series, you can log on to netny.net. And there is a website I want to ask Father Ed about. What is the website for the church?
Our website is www.stcharlesbklyn.org.
stcharlesbklyn.org. Come visit. So again, thank you again, Father Ed. So we'll see you back here on net. Until then, I'm Nick Vavas with City of Churches.
Well, that's it for this week's lost episode of City of Churches, featuring our previous host, Nick Vavas, interviewing Father Ed Duran at St. Charles Borromeo Church in Brooklyn Heights. Now remember, get in contact with us at netnewyork.net. You can follow us on Facebook or Twitter, or you can write into us at City of Churches at 1712 10th Avenue, Brooklyn, New York, 11215. Until our next episode, I thank you so much for watching. Please come back and God bless you.